Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. Josh here. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation about private equity, about buying businesses, about all sorts of fun stuff. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? Who is Michael?
Yeah, now I'm a tired person because I have three little kids under 4 years old. But Michael is I have a life mission statement I always say. So I'm a beloved son of God. I am a faithful husband to my lovely wife, Veronica. We've been together for over 10 years. And I'm a father to my three kids. And I try to strive every day to make a positive impact on the world around me. So that's who I am in terms of to my core. In terms of the professional stuff, which is what most people always want to know about, I run Garden City companies. We are a evergreen holding company, and we buy small to mid-sized companies and we hold them forever. So think of like Warren Buffett's model of Berkshire Hathaway, except much, 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 much smaller family-owned companies. So companies that do revenues anywhere, kind of call it 8 million to like 50 million in revenue. And we buy those companies. We really, really seek to like modernize and redeem and restore and reimagine them through culture, like a really, really kind of Chick-fil-A like culture where people matter and they love working there, through technology enablement and through leveraging our 50 families that are really strategic, big name people, to help grow the sales of the company. So I kind of do that. That's my day job. And then on the side, we have a venture capital company my wife and I started because we both come from tech, and we've invested in about 100 companies, just all tech companies for the most part.
Got it. So you have three kids, but then you have 100 babies through your VC company, right? Like you've invested in a lot of stuff. And you kind of said that like nonchalantly. And yeah, and my wife and I have a VC group that we've invested in 100 businesses. Bro, that's pretty cool. And to do that with your wife, that's awesome. Now, Veronica, what is in the VC company and as you guys show up, what's her superpower? What's her position in the VC group?
Discernment all day long. Yeah. So she doesn't really know what the companies do or what their multiples are or what their TAM, anything like that, nor does she care. But I just felt a big call to stewardship when, so at Garden City, we have like to talk about Garden City, which you'll see how it relates to our venture group called MAV Partners. And all MAV stands for is Michael and Veronica. But Garden City, we have 55 kind of the who's who investors, CEO of Intel, Ritz-Carlton, Drew Brees, Tim Tebow, right? CEO of Equifax, Costco, HP, DocuSign, all these CEOs, right? So these are our 55 investors. And what started to happen is as I was doing life with these 55 people, because I'm investing their capital to buy these small to mid-sized family companies, they would constantly call me and be like, hey, have you heard of Impossible Foods? Well, I'm investing into it. And if you're interested, you could co-invest alongside me. Hey, I'm investing in Tonal. Hey, I'm investing in Lime Scooters. Hey, I'm investing in, the list goes on and on. And so what really started to happen is my wife and I were like, wow, we have really, really, really dear valued friendships that are being generous enough to even think about us and bring us these deals. It's a call to stewardship that we ought to invest because of the rare opportunity we're in, right? If we didn't know these people, we would never see these opportunities. So it's not that we're really trying to become the best investors. We're just trying to really steward what we feel has been entrusted to us, which is friendships, and kind of ride the coattails of people a lot smarter than us. So she's really good at discerning when I say, hey, Governor Jeb Bush, for example, just called me. He said they're investing in this deal. He's asking if we want to co-invest. And she's like, of course, the governor always brings us good deals. We trust him. He's high integrity, or if it's a new person that we don't really know, right? They're like, my wife's like, we don't really know them. And I didn't feel too well with the first time we had dinner with them, right? So she's really good at discerning.
Yeah. So one of my biggest failures, Michael, was we had a deal come up and I'm like, we're going to New York. She's like, babe, I don't have a good feeling about this. I was like, no. You got to trust me. I got to be the leader of this household. So I dragged my family up to New York. It was a catastrophe. Lost a lot of money. Lot of money. Have you ever made those mistakes where you're like, all right, babe, your superpower is discernment, but I'm not going to listen to you on this. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, there's two deals specifically. One of them is a guy who I went, I hope he does not listen to this podcast, but I went to high school with him and we did not like each other. I mean, we were enemies. I mean, straight up enemies. Even though I heard his name 10 years later, I just did not like him.
Yeah.
And he sent me a LinkedIn note. And he's like, Mike, you're in tech now and you're investing. I'm in tech, I'm investing. Here's a deal. And he allowed me to co-invest. And I really liked the deal itself. And I told my wife, and she's like, babe, no, let's not do it. You don't know him, you don't trust him, you've always had a bad instinct, and I was like, but babe, it's like Microsoft's leading this around, didn't listen to her. Bad decision, and then one other time was I met this really well-named guy that I won't mention his name, but I was like, oh my gosh, I got to hang out with this well-named guy this weekend, and he's bringing us a deal. We ought to do it. My wife's like, same thing, Hey, didn't you kind of have a little spidey sense that he wasn't the right one? Same thing. The deal didn't end up good.
How much did those two cost you, if you don't mind sharing?
Probably about 100,000.
Yeah.
100,000.
All right, I'm gonna peel into those a little bit because this show's about deals and deal makers. And when deals gone wild, we learn a lot, right? Like we could learn from our mistakes, right? So in that first one, if we were to be honest, like, do you think you were truly investing in the deal, or were you trying to prove something to the dude, or maybe even prove something to yourself? Like, what are your thoughts there?
No, I was scared to lose out
Yeah.
on that deal. I was scared to lose out because Microsoft was leading the round, and it was no fee, no carry.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So I was like, okay, I don't have to pay the 2 and 20 on this deal. So I like that about it. And so yeah, that deal was more not losing out. The other deal was more so I went in for the wrong reasons. I didn't like the deal. I didn't like the space. I didn't like anything about it. Too early for me. And I just did it because kind of, what's the word?
Yeah,
I was
starstruck.
starstruck. Yeah, starstruck.
Yeah, man, I get it. So as you're investing in deals, whether you're buying a company, a mom and pop, trying to redeem companies, which I want to hear about that. When you're doing that, like, how do you protect yourself from those kind of things? Making sure you're not starstruck, making sure you're investing in it for the right reasons, making sure you're not getting in just to the fear of missing out or because Microsoft this or that. Like, how do you set up guardrails to invest in the right kind of business?
You nailed the right word, guardrails. And so we have 3 guardrails now that we put in place this year in 2021, which are very simple. One is that the company has to be doing at least, which is really an easy benchmark, but at least $1 million of recurring revenue, because a lot of ours are all software.
A month or a year?
No, just per year,
Okay.
annual 1 million reoccurring. So that automatically takes out almost any seed deal, any idea, any ideation, anything like that. But the second thing is it needs to be referred to us by a very trusted party. And the third one is it has to be led by a blue chip venture firm or investor. So if it's not a blue chip, Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Excel, or in the PE world, Carlyle, the Thoma Brava, Vista, we're just not investing.
Got it.
Because it's not our full-time job, right?
Yeah.
It's our passive kind of family office. Now in Garden City, we're the ones that are buying the companies. That's our responsibility to discern and to diligence that deal. But on MAV Ventures, it's just about riding the coattails of the best, because they're looking at 10,000 companies and only investing in 100, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Very cool. So why do you think, with that one deal, why do you think that Microsoft didn't do the 220?
Oh, well, Microsoft did do their 2 and 20 to theirs, but this gentleman called me because they were on the board. And so they had some extra allocation. And so he was just trying to build a relationship with me to get into my deal flow. So he was
Got
like,
it.
hey, here's a deal we have. Here's a deal we're on the board of. I could get you in. And, maybe on your next deals, Mike, I know you do a lot of those, you get me in, right?
Yeah. All right. So how do you pronounce your last name?
Arrieta.
Arrieta. So I did a Google search and I saw you, right? And I saw a bunch of stuff about pray.com and Garden City and even Mav. And then I saw a guy without a shirt on and he's a professional MMA fighter. That's not you, is it?
No, I wish it was. has a much better body and physique than I do.
All right. So there's this guy out there with your name who's an MMA fighter. All right. So there's two with the exact same names. Now, do you think that now that you know that being a competitive guy, is there something in you that wants to be the only one, Michael, can't say your last name, the best fighter?
No, not at all. Not at all. If anything, I hope that that fighter or the mortgage banker in Hawaii, there's another one,
Oh, is there? Okay.
that maybe they hear a couple podcasts and they know what I stand for, and hopefully it just impacts them.
Got it. Okay. So back to business. I saw something that you posted about the silver tsunami, right? The seller tsunami. I think you liked it or you commented or you wrote it. What is the seller tsunami?
Silver tsunami.
Silver tsunami. What is that?
I honestly believe with every ounce of my being, it is the best asset class that any investor could invest into over the next decade. Hands down, the silver tsunami. It's better than venture. The downside risk protection, upside is infinite. There's nowhere near enough capital in this asset class. So what the silver tsunami is, silver in terms of gray hair, right? Older people. So baby boomers in the United States of America were the most entrepreneurial generation in our country's history. They started more businesses than anyone else by far. Now we're in 2022 probably by the time this podcast comes out. And these baby boomers are having to figure out what to do with their business, right? They've been running these businesses for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And they're like, hey, I need a succession plan. Who's going to take this over? Because I can't do it forever. And even a liquidity plan. So all my value, all my net worth is in this one asset class. I need to diversify. So in this asset class, they're typically small to mid-sized companies, right? Baby boomers currently run about 250,000 small businesses in the country with revenues of between $1 and $25 million revenue. Okay, 250,000 small businesses.
Wow.
Of those 250,000 small businesses, Stanford did a case study that said half of those, about 125,000, do not have a liquidity or succession plan. Okay. So that means there's over 125,000 businesses that in the next decade need to figure out someone to sell to and someone to give the business to and trust, right? However, the issue is a lot of the dollars in this world called private equity, for you to raise a fund, $100, $200, $300 million fund, you cannot deploy that by buying a $2 million EBITDA company that trades for 5 times, because that's a $10 million purchase price, right? On a $10 million purchase price, you're not going to play in that sandbox with a $75, $100, $200, $500 million fund. So the players in this space, the silver tsunami, the players in the space of small and medium-sized companies are the following. They are search funders. A search funder is someone that goes to business school, they graduate, they're like, I don't want to go work for a company. I want to go buy my company, and I want to be an entrepreneur through acquiring a company. Entrepreneurship through acquisition. They raise a little bit of dollars, they find the company, they tell the owner, sell me the company and I'm going to be the new CEO. So that's in this asset class. Another person in this asset class are independent sponsors. This would be, Josh, you saying, hey, I'm going to go find a deal to buy. And once I find the deal to buy, I'm going to round up dollars. These are also called country club deals. I'm going to round up dollars at the country club, and we're going to buy this company from this owner. And hopefully we find an operator, and that's it. And by the way, Josh, I'm going to go and focus on my full-time job. I did this on the side, but I at least orchestrated and cultivated the money to buy the company. And it's pretty cool. If my investors make money, I get 20% of the profits, right? And so that's typically who's in the space, is search funders or independent sponsors. There's a very few amount of private equity funds that are dedicated to microcap or lower middle market, right? There's very few companies that have committed dollars that are professionally buying these small businesses and looking to professionalize them and looking to make them sustainable and scalable, right? And do it out of a fund model, right? And so that's where we focus on. The reason why this is such a good asset class in the silver tsunami is these businesses, Pepperdine, that's a good report called the Pulse Market Report. Pepperdine says these businesses that have net profit, call it whatever you want, free cash flow, net profit, EBITDA, between 1 and 6 million, trade between the multiples they trade at is like 3 and 5 times. So if you buy a business at, call it 4x EBITDA, if you're with me, if you buy a business at 4x EBITDA and you never grow it and you put no debt on it and it stays exactly the same as when you bought it, it means you make your money back in 4 years. And then in that 5th year, now you just made X million dollars. In the 6th year, X million. 7th year, X million. So it's a 25% cash on cash yield. If you buy a business for 4x, it's a 25% cash on cash yield. Now, if you buy that business for 4x and you add a little bit of debt, it's much more than 25%. If you buy that business for 4x and you grow it a little bit than when you bought it, it's much more than 25%. Where are you going to get those returns where if you keep a business as is flat and you buy it for 4x, it's guaranteed 25% cash on cash yield?
Awesome. You explained that really well. Now, how do you remember all those numbers? Like numbers and details. Is that your specialty? Like you've got a picture perfect memory, like where you could see something, or how did you do that?
No, I think I'm just a sales guy that knows the things that people catch on to, and it clicks with them. So I know the nuggets to focus on that makes people raise their eyebrows and be like, wow.
Got it. All right. Now, speaking of sales, I think sales is a very important, skill set for an entrepreneur to have, unless they're just extremely good looking or something like that, which I don't have that, right? So in sales, right? Let's just say you're selling me some knives from Cutco back in the day. Give us the pitch, because you went from your family was struggling financially. You decided to go get a job at Cutco. Give me the pitch, man. The first pitch you did.
Well, look, sales has such a bad rap in America. I think because the same thing of kind of the generation that we were brought up into, you immediately tie sales into I lose and someone else wins, right? It cost me something more inherently than I gained, right? There was no value there. The reason why I was so good at sales at Cutco is because I was authentically curious about the other person, and I sincerely wanted to build a friendship and a relationship. And the other thing is I was always aiming really high, really, really, really high. I was very fearless, right? So it started with everything. In terms of the pitch for Cutco, it all starts with, by the way, with anyone, even when we just raised our $50 million fund, it starts from the beginning of very, very, very clearly letting them know what you're trying to do. Right. So surprises are for birthdays and birthdays alone. Right. And so when I meet with someone and try to sell them Cutco knives, I say, Susie, I'm here because I'd love for you to buy some Cutco knives. I think they're really, really good. And I'm also here because I hope that you recommend me to like 10 of your friends. Right. But granted, even if none of that happens, I still hope that I was valuable to your day or kind to you, or we at least built a friendship and so forth. And so you're just breaking the ice out of the gates. Right. That's the way my wife and I got together. I was very upfront from the second I messaged her on Facebook. Hey, I'd like to date you and I'd like to take you to a football game. It wasn't this like thing. So I broke the ice very quickly. That's a big thing. The second thing is building rapport, right? Once you immediately say what your true objective is of, hey, Josh, I'd love for you to invest in Garden City, and here's our model. The next immediate thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk about the what, I'm going to talk about the who. I just want to get to know you. And before we started the podcast, you said people like to do business with people who they know, like, and trust, right? It's the same thing. So I would love to do an hour Cutco demo and spend 40 minutes literally on building rapport. And then if we have 20 minutes at the end, they're going to buy. I mean, they know why I'm there, right? And now they know me. Now the last is kind of the specifics of the what. So when we fundraised, everyone was like, wait a minute, you guys have a much richer carry structure than any private equity fund. I was like, yeah, you're right. And one investor was like, there's no way people signed off on that. I was like, actually, you're the first person to ever ask me about this. No one cared because they trusted me. They like me. They know what I'm for, So that's the last thing. And then the final thing is being a steward and being and following up, following up. Details matter, right? Doing what you say that you're going to do, right? Because at that point, that's where the flywheel starts, or recommendations. Sales, doesn't matter which sales you're in, the best marketing method for sales is recommendations. And you typically only get recommendations if you follow up really well and you follow up and you deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you try to sell knives to your girlfriend or wife, before you're like, hey, I'd really like to take you out to a game and then maybe sell you some knives?
No. She couldn't afford them.
Got it. All right. So speaking of Ford, right? You reading your story, didn't doing a little bit of background search on you, is growing up, you said you guys, your family didn't have a lot of money financially, and now here you are, raised a $50 million fund, invested in over 100 businesses through your VC capital, right? The Bible says something like this. It says some of the things that the world cannot stand up under, and it says when a pauper becomes a prince, right? When someone who goes from nothing to have a lot. What kind of mindset shift did you have to go through or evolve into when you had very little growing up to now you're living in a world of abundance and country club or what, like country club deals and VC? Like what was the challenge that you've experienced?
Oof. Now you're taking the podcast to, it's a whole new depth. I'm definitely not a country club guy, if you could tell. So I would never pay that. It's difficult. It's difficult. It's very, 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 very difficult to be first generation of whatever you want to call it. It affects everything. It affects every decision. So I'm still trying to figure this out, to be completely blunt with you. It honestly, the poverty of growing up could become just as much of an idol as the wealth that you get, right? So at the end of the day, I think that what I try to focus on is humility, right? Of like knowing who I am. And I always say this, and some people love it, some people don't. Like, we all pee, poop, and die. We all pee, poop, and die, right? And so I just try to remember, never get too high on my horse, right? Because every single one of us, at the end of the day, and none of us are immortal. Doesn't matter how connected or how rich you are, we're all going to die and have to face that. How else does it change? Financially, with children, especially, try to figure out how do I raise my children with work ethic and with the humility and with the authenticity and with the drive that I had, like wanting it in life, wanting it, while at the same time, I want certain things because I've been working so hard. And so I sometimes have to deprive myself of certain things in sake of my children, right? So like if you come to our house, right? I have many employees that have nicer houses than I do, many employees, but I do that for a couple of reasons. One is when employees come to my house, team members, I want them to feel like they're welcome. I don't want them we've all been in those houses where you immediately feel insecure. You immediately feel like you don't measure up. So that's one thing. Two is my family, my sisters, my parents, right? I want them to come to my house and still feel the same exact way, still feel welcome. My children, right? I don't want them ever looking at themselves like they're entitled, So the list goes on and on and on and on. The answer of it is I'm learning it. I don't have the answers.
Yeah, I think intentionally depriving yourself for the sake of your kids. I don't know if I would have that willpower, right? Like if I just closed a $50 million deal or this or that, like I've closed some, good sized deals, but like I always try to question myself, like Josh, and I tell you a unique game that I play sometimes. Once in a while, I'll go buy a lotto ticket. I know I'm never going to win. I just know it, right? Like we all know it. So I buy a lotto ticket and I'll put it in my wallet and I won't see if I won. I don't even look at the numbers. But then I go through this exercise in my head is what would change if I had a winning lotto ticket in my wallet and I didn't know about it? And then what would happen? How would I respond if I did win it? How would I, let's just say 500 million bucks or 300 million bucks or what, like where it's like, I never have to work a day. Like, what would I do differently? And I try to take myself through this exercise to not that I would ever win, but if I did, that'd be cool. But like it's not for whether I win or not. It's how will I show up to the world, right? Now you mentioned, and I think that this is so cool. You mentioned like you intentionally deprive yourself because you're on a mission, right? You're purposeful about how you raise your kids. When I asked you who you were, you said this, and I love this, man. Let me pull it like where you said it. Beloved son of God, husband to Veronica, father of your kids, right? And then you got to business. Has it always been where your identity was wrapped up in those things? Or have you ever got on the flip side where the pendulum swung and you got your identity wrapped up in money,
my whole
success,
life.
or business? Yeah. Tell me.
My whole life as of 7 years ago. Yeah. I I mean, when I started making six figures when I was 17, right? Sold our first company that I had equity in when I was 21, had more money then than I ever thought. Then I became chief of staff at Dell, flying around in private jets 24/7, staying at places that cost $2,000-3,000 a night, right? Private chauffeurs and all that. And with conquering, quote unquote, the world, I felt like I was so empty and purposeless inside, right? And I've worked for two billionaires now and saw firsthand that, as you said, it's like, what's it all for if at the end you literally don't keep it? You literally cannot take it with you, right? And everyone knows these things, but I think it's really important to say out loud. No one's ever in their deathbed saying, I wish I had more money. No one's in their deathbed saying, I wish I did more deals. No one's in their deathbed saying, I wish I invested in XYZ, or I wish I worked more. All they say many times, it's about relationships, right? I wish I spent more time with my mother and father. I wish I told my children more that I love them. You know, I wish I gave more. I wish I impacted more people's life. I wish I gave my time, right? And so I didn't have any of those things, right? So the reason why I created that mission statement is because I needed a true north that I always go off the path. I mean, how does a plane get completely to a foreign desolate land? By going 1 degree to the right, 1 degree to the right, 1 degree to the right every single day. And they wake up in a desolate land and they go, how the heck did I get here? By going 1 degree to the right, right? So I have that purpose statement. I have that mission statement to keep me on track. There's many weeks, though, I do want to be clear. There's many weeks where the priority has to be work. There's many weeks where the priority has to be work. Or there's many weeks that if my daughter has eye surgery, that she has to be the number one priority, right? There's many, so these things change around, but for the most part, I know that that's the vision that I need to cast my kind of my plan in, you know?
Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't believe there's such thing as a balanced work life, right?
You're right.
Especially when you have 3 freaking kids. There's no such thing as balance. What are your thoughts?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think it's impossible, right? It's impossible to do that for what I just said, right? Is what do you do when you have a deal that you're closing, right? That closes next week and you're saying, well, you know, my balance is X. No, there's a time and a place and a season for everything, right? Right now I'm in a season where my kids are young. They have to take priority over when they're going to be 14, 15, 16, right? So right now my balance is with my kids, right? There's going to be other seasons for different things, but I think I think you trying to live a quote unquote work-life balance, I think that's not accurate, right? I think it sets you up for condemnation. I think it sets you up for guilt, right? I think the best measure though is having what I have, a personal group of kind of people that watch my blind spots. My wife and I ask each other 5 questions every Sunday, right? And I'm always asking her to guard my blind spots. I always asking her to guard my blind spots.
Wow. Okay. So this is cool. I have 5 questions that I ask, right? Tell me your 5. I'll tell you my 5. Are you able to do that on air?
Of course, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, it's actually great. So the first one is, how did you feel loved this past week?
Oh,
right? Which is so good because many times the answer has been, I didn't feel loved this past week. I was like, what do you mean? I just took you like to this place and we had a great vacation. I was with you the whole time. She was like, but you did not affirm me at all. Not once did you affirm me. So you start to learn good habits of how your wife feels loved or not. Or she might say, I felt extremely loved this week. I'm like, what? I was traveling all week. She was like, yeah, but you called me every day and told me how your day was. You included me in your day. I'm like, that's what made you feel loved, you know, not when I sent you flowers. She's like, no, I don't care about those. Right. So how do you feel loved this past week? Number 2, what does your upcoming week look like? This is critical for deal people, entrepreneurs, right? Critical, because surprises are for birthdays and birthdays alone, right? The worst is when you're talking to your wife at 3 p.m. on Tuesday and you're like, okay, babe, well, you know, I'm coming home late tonight. She's like, what do you mean? You're like, the dinner, I have dinner tonight with this customer. Are you kidding me? It's been such a hard day. And now you're not going to be here tonight, right? So what does your upcoming week look like, right? So there's total transparency on both sides. It helps you plan.
Don't go to the next one.
Okay.
That one may save so many deal makers' marriages out there. holy moly. Cause there's so many times as a deal maker, you're like, hey, I got to go in the office early and then I got a client meeting at night. Like you got kid duty all day, babe, and at night, and you're tucking them in. I love tucking my kids in every single night.
Yeah.
But there's every once in a while you got to go to a chamber meeting or you got to go to this kind of meeting or that kind of meeting. Wow, that's so good. What does your upcoming? Because then they could prepare, or I could say, hey, I'm going to order you some pick, drop off. So
Yeah,
you
my
know,
like the 23rd of this week, I'm flying down to South Florida for the Christmas party for our pool company. That's 2 days before Christmas. The whole family's in town, right? Could
yeah,
you imagine if she did not know that, right? And I dropped it on her tomorrow or Wednesday or something, but oh, I got to fly out tomorrow. She's known this for weeks. She's actually supporting me in this. She's actually now planning dinner around this on Thursday night, right? There is a line I say probably too much. My team's sick of hearing this, but this is the number one line for a leader. People support what they help create. People support what they help create. If you want someone to support something, bring them into the process and have them help you create it.
yeah.
Right.
So
Number
before
three,
no, you can't go on. This is still good. People support what they help create. I'm writing this down because I don't want.
I literally have probably it's 3:00 as we record this podcast. I probably have 5 conversations today around this topic. It's every single day I talk about this one statement.
Yeah. So you're flying out 2 days before Christmas. You got to watch the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles back in the day with Steve Martin. He's trying to get home for Christmas and he goes on this fun adventure. I think the guy wasn't John Candy. Maybe, I don't remember. Funny movie. Anyways, all right. Third question. Go for it.
How would you feel most loved and encouraged in the days ahead? How would you feel most loved in the days ahead? Right. So I tell her how I would selfishly like to feel most loved. So it would be something such as, hey, I would feel really, really loved if when I come home on the 23rd, for example, that you guys have dinner there with me. If you guys could wait an hour, that would make me feel really loved. Or I would feel really loved if you would call my mom this week because I'm not going to be able to see her or whatever it may be, right? Or my wife, it may tell me, I would feel really loved this week if you allowed me one morning by myself and you took care of the kids to take to school, right? So you're completely helping each other know how to best love you, right? The fourth one is, this is uncensored, I guess, is how would you feel best pursued in sex and intimacy this week? How would you feel best pursued in sex and intimacy this week? When we were in premarital counseling, probably the number one issue they said that causes the two biggest reasons for divorce show to be finances and show to be sex, right? And so it's this, unfortunately in America, it's this taboo topic that is not taboo in front of friends and family. It's actually taboo with husband and wives behind closed doors, right? It's this thing. So we completely want to nip that in the bud. And we basically say, how would you feel best pursued, right? And so we talk about that as husband and wife, and it's incredible. It's incredible, right? That's the way God intended it. And so number 5 is, how can I pray for you this week? How can I pray for you this week?
All right. How did you come up with these? These are solid, bro. How did you come up with these?
We found them online like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were so good that we just stole them.
R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate.
Steal from one, plagiarism. Steal from many, market research.
Right. Oh, that's so good. All right, here are mine. Mine are more, see, yours is very hyper focused towards a relationship. I think it's gorgeous. Mine is more of an internal conversation with the relationship I have with myself and my God. So these are the questions that I walk myself through. I got one of them tattooed on my arm. The first question I think every guy or every person needs to ask themselves is, who is God, right? I think until you can understand are you created? Are you evolved? Like whatever that is. And I'm happy to kind of go into details for anybody who, out there listening, but I think it's very important, even just to acknowledge, right? So who is God? Who am I? Right? Like, how do I show up to this world? What is my unique, proposition to this world? Who am I? What's my identity? What do I base it on? Who do I serve? This is such a powerful one. What do I do for them? and why do I do it? And I think that those are the questions that I try to walk myself through as a deal maker. It helps me create focus, helps me create mission, helps me to say no to certain people. I'm like, nope, you're not the people I serve. See you later, which I think is helpful. So man, thanks for doing a question swap with me.
Yeah.
Let's play a game. All right. Are you cool with this? I buy these decks of cards on the internet, that involve asking questions, right? Because I mean, we could talk about deals, right? Like I'm sure everybody loves talking about deals, but like if someone really wants to know what is private equity, what's a holding company, they could look online. But I think people would like to figure out what's behind our head. So I got a bunch of cards. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, so I got these cards, and I'm going to read you this question. Then you have to answer it. Okay, I don't know whatever it's going to say. How would you spend your time if you turned invisible for a week?
Wow. That is such a good question.
It's a good question, right?
Wow. How would I spend my time if I could be invisible for a week? First thing comes to mind is in my children's playroom.
Yeah.
I would just love when there's no adults, just see them just in their imaginative world. I would love that. I would love to be in the White House during that time.
Secret meetings, right?
Yeah, totally. Just see that entire operations, the operations of the White House. What else? What else? I'd probably like to, if I could be invisible, I probably would want to see a full private day of someone like the Pope or one of the most holy of holy, kind of see their habits, which I know it would be probably very normal human stuff, like they pee and poop, and they're normal people, which it would encourage me a lot, of that.
Yeah. Super cool, man. Super cool. So, one of the businesses you guys invested in is pray.com, right? Talk to us about that. Like, was that a VC? Was that a VC play? Okay. Like, why would a venture capitalist invest in pray.com?
Yeah. I mean, so we invested millions of dollars in pray.com. Just to give you it's funny that you choose that one out of the 100. So pray.com we invested into this year. So I look for a couple things when we wrote a check that big. Obviously, one is the team. I mean, they are just rock stars. The CEO, Steve Gatena, is a multi-entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. His last company sold. He knows the media space really well. He's relentless, right? He has a deep conviction about what prayer does for people. So I was really betting on the team. The other thing is you need to zoom out and see the macro trend of what's happening here. We are a society and a culture that is significantly depressed. We need dopamine constantly throughout the day. Our mental health state is out of whack completely. What typically drives us and builds us in terms of healthy perspective has been thrown out the window. Community, time with family and friends, right? Reading, just all that stuff, all because of one big thing, your phone, right? I mean, it's the biggest epidemic that we've seen. And so mental health and depression is at all-time highs, opioids at all-time highs, right? Phone usage is growing quantum leaps every year for all of us. And so what this team said is that one of the biggest trends that people are Googling and wanting is prayer, meditation, sleep, right? So even though that we're all screwed up right now, deep inside of us, we want to get well, right? So they believe that prayer is the answer for mental health. They believe that prayer is the answer for depression. They believe that prayer and the word of God is the answer. And so I believe in that. I believe that we are in a crisis. I believe that people are on their phones, and having a digital medium to meet them in that state, I think is great. The other thing is the TAM, the total addressable market, right? I mean, there are hundreds of millions of Christians that are on their phones, that are constantly looking for solutions like these. I also love the fact that They are going very big on the media channel in terms of they have a lot of celebrities that Earl Jones from James Earl Jones from Star Wars, obviously, right? He reads through the Bible. You have Drew Brees that talks about leadership and the birth of Jesus story, right? There's a couple big ones dropping soon, right? Very big ones. So there's that angle to it. Their growth was outrageous. They're going global. So, and by the way, the coolest part is they have the best venture funds, the best VCs backing them as well, which was mind blowing to me, right? That you would have companies like Greylock and Science and Goldman Sachs and a lot of other firms there that are backing them.
Yeah, super cool. So you got young kids, you got Mav, you got your wife, you got Garden City, you got a bunch of cool things going. You and I, we catch up again in 30 years, 40 years. Now, hopefully we have a relationship that we keep things going, but let's just say you and I bump back up into each other in 40 years, right? And we're a little bit older, a little bit more gray. And we go, hey man, how did it go over the last 40 years? Like what does winning look like for you if I asked you that in 40 years?
Ooh, good question. Winning to me looks like exactly what I said to start the podcast with, that I'm still rooted in my faith, knowing that there's nothing I can do to earn more of God's love, because although I've tasted relationships and money and experiences and pleasures and possessions, nothing has ever filled me up like knowing that Jesus died for me. Nothing. I mean, I have completely transformed because of that. So in 40 years, hopefully the first thing I want to tell you is how good God is.
Yeah.
Probably the second thing I want to tell you is I cannot believe my wife and I have now been married for 50 something years, right? And that she is more beautiful than ever before. And I'm madly in love with her. And that I just can't keep my eyes or hands off of her. And that we are just totally in sync with whatever businesses or nonprofits and so forth. Probably hopefully the next thing I tell you is my children, how I just came off a trip with one of my hopefully grandchildren's by then, right? Or how they're coming to my property, or how we're going on this vacation, or how we're doing these experiences, right? Or just being deeply entrenched into their life, right? And then lastly, hopefully I tell you that we have a couple $1 billion now that we've put to work in buying hundreds of small businesses where we have radically changed the lives of the hundreds of thousands of employees, everyday Americans, blue collar employees, right? Where we are creating places where they could thrive and prosper and flourish. And that I just can't believe that we've put billions of dollars to work, So it's really executing on that mission that I have today.
Very cool. All right. For deal makers in the audience and they want to figure out a way to connect with you and maybe do a deal with you, what's a good place to start that journey?
Yeah, maybe LinkedIn. It's probably the best. If you just find me on LinkedIn, Michael Arrieta, you just ping me a message on there. That could be good. Or if you just want to shoot a note to someone here in our office, and her email is joy, Joy, at joingardencity.com. Joy at joingardencity.com. And if it's anything for me, she'll get it to me.
Very cool. What questions should I have asked you in this interview that I screwed up and didn't ask you?
I think you nailed it on the money side. I think you nailed it on the money side. I think that's the most underrated thing, though, is you always just focus on landing to the place that, if you had $10 million, would you stop working, or would all your problems be solved for? And I would just say money is just one of the resources that we have. That's it. Money is just one of the many resources that we have. And 99 times out of 100, when you get to that place that you have all the dollars you want, you are still faced with the same exact issues. It's more of a soul issue than it is a money issue.
Very cool. Michael, thanks for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, reach out to our guests. Say thank you for spending your time and investing your time on, being on the show.
One more thing.
Go for it.
If anyone ever refers us a business, we pay them $100,000 finder fee, and we also give them $25,000 to their charity of choice. So it's a really generous finder's fee thank you gift if they ever refer us any small to mid-sized private companies.
Yeah. So with that, guys, right? So 125K, 25K to your mission of choice. Reach out to Mike and his team and Joy over there. Reach out to them. Say, hey, heard you on the Deal Scout. Wanna refer you some some business to help you redeem some businesses, which we didn't get to talk about, but we both got to go. Maybe they'll be on the next show. The mission of the Deal Scout in this show is to connect good people with deals. So as always, fellow audience members, reach out to our guests, say thank you, and find a way to do a deal with them. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you, everybody.
Thanks.